And we are live. All right, Dave Wilson of the Ring of Hire show. You're going to be, I don't know if some of you are going to remember this person over to my right here. Well, my right, your left. How you doing, Kylie?
I'm good. How are you?
I don't know. I think it's only been, what, a year?
It's been close to, I think. Yeah.
Oh my God. When you said that you'd like to come back on, I was like, oh my God. I'm trying to think with Jason and everybody. It was a blast from a
I
long
know.
time ago. But
I
it's
know
going to be a lot
things
of great
here.
fun. Then we're going to be able to get a lot of comments. I know Kenny's going to be on here, but we'll be now. I got to figure this out. This is this new software, but we'll be right back after this video. If I can show the video, you see how good it is? There we go. All this new technology, I tell you, it drives me friggin' nuts. So you can see over here to the left, the little comment section is a little bit different. It's a little bit smaller. Then I got to figure out how to add people to it so I can get you back on there with the comments. But it's a little bit smaller, and the comment section does work. It has been working on LinkedIn.
Good.
So it's compared to the other one, it was just such a long. So how the hell are you?
I'm good. It's been a good start to the year.
Oh my
Um,
God. You're still
I'm
in Florida, right?
still in Florida. Yeah, I won't go anywhere. My oldest is in his sophomore year of high school. He
Right.
just got his license and a car last month. So
How old is he?
16.
Oh my
Just turned
God, that's right.
16.
Yeah, Pennsylvania. Cash is going to be 16 in October. And I believe in Pennsylvania, it's 16 and a half. You can drive during the day and only no night hours, I believe.
Yeah, he can drive until I think it's 11 p.m. right now. And
Right.
then at 17 it goes to midnight or 1. I don't know. It goes as he gets older. But
Now
I think
they can't drive by themselves, right? Is permit or is Florida
no,
different?
his license. He got his permit at 15. On his 16th birthday. He took his driver's test. So he has a car now. He did the whole thing last month.
So at 15 in Florida, you get that.
Permit, yeah.
A
So he could
permit.
drive with
Wow.
a 21 or older licensed driver. And then last month he got his actual
I,
driver's
I
license.
can't picture him driving already with that at 15, but I guess, did he go to the school? How they send you to the schools? Can you get the school drivers?
You can, and I think you can actually like bypass. It's like a discount on your insurance.
Right.
There's a
Yep.
bunch of stuff. His high school doesn't have a driver's ed program, so he would have had to add it outside of school hours. And with
Right.
sport, he started working like a month after he turned 15. So
Right.
it was just kind of hard to make that work. So we did all the driver hours with him, took him out. And so he's
Wow.
not allowed on the interstate because that terrifies me.
I
But
cannot even picture that. It's been so long since my daughter's 32, but we paid for this thing, but still to get on a highway or road, I don't know. Things were different when we were younger. I just feel it was compared now because you got so much going on with cell phones, and all the distractions right now compared to when we were growing up. You didn't have that nowadays. My God, man, my nerves are probably going to be so stressed.
I didn't think at first because it didn't stress me. It was when he started saying like, "Oh, well, the football game is like, and can I go to the football game?" And I'm like, "Oh my gracious!" Now he's coming home, and it was the
Oh my
panic of like, I'm
God.
ready to go to bed at 9:30, 10 o'clock, and he's not coming home from the football game until 11, and it's the freak out of like, I can't sleep. I can't sleep
Oh
until
my
he's
God.
home. Like, God, I understand now what my mom went through.
Right.
I used
Oh
to
my
think she was
God.
so dramatic, and now I'm like, oh my gracious, I understand.
One more question before we start. Did you get snow? Because I know people said on the news.
I am about 7 hours away from where it snowed. So I'm in the Orlando area and it
Okay.
snowed up in the Panhandle. But I have two friends who were up there and it was like 8 or 9 inches. It was a lot.
Wow, yeah, I couldn't believe it. The one guy was on the news, I was like, "Oh my god, Florida for the first time in the 20s and 30s." I said, "They must be freaking out."
I loved it.
You
It
know?
was the last time it snowed in Orlando was in 77. So it's
Wow.
been a little while, and I think it was only a couple of inches.
Not
In
different.
Central Florida, it doesn't get too much of the fun weather.
Right. Oh my god. All right. Well, we're gonna start tonight. The topic I love, and I'll tell you, when you do all your research, you think you know everything, but you don't in talent acquisition. I swear to God.
Can't.
Because I mean, the retention, I believe it goes along with recruiting too. It's a big part of it, whether you're going to retain the people or not. But I wanted to ask you the first thing, and I want to ask you straight out one question: what the hell do you think people want in a job? In that number, if you could think of something that, I mean, you're good at what you do, is what do you think they want? I
Uh,
mean,
I think had you asked me this 5 to 7 years ago, I would
yeah,
have said, career progression
right,
and feeling valued in your position. But honestly, I think now even compensation, I would have said feeling like they could,
man,
have a good healthy comp. I
right,
don't think any of that is true now. I think
yeah.
it is stability. It is such a scary market right now that the candidates that I speak to, they just want somewhere where they don't have to worry about 3 months later getting laid off. They're
But
scared.
that was one of the things in here that we'd be talking about, and I might as well hit that there. I kept saying to myself, "All right, you say," and I agree with you there, like, because I'm 58 now, and I don't care what I say. I listen, 10 more years, that's all I really need. Let's just say I'm gonna be retired at 68, because that's where I wanna go, 68 to 69 years old. My son's gonna still be in college, so I screwed myself there, but I got he's only going to be, I'll be out 72 when he gets out of college, but who knows? But my point there is, I find myself saying that. I was talking to a guy today about it. I find myself saying, wow, 10 more years and I retire. But what do you want? Like, but he was
Yeah.
naturally in his late 20s and he wasn't even thinking of anything like that. But I looked at his resume and I said, "What? You had such a good work record. On your 3 jobs, you had really good work record, even though he was in, hospitality, and he went into logistics and all that." But then I said, "What happened with 4 jobs?" And he says, "Dave, right there," he said, "I every time I went somewhere, I was let go." I was like,
Yeah.
"What, like let go for a job?" He says, "No." He said, "They got slow. They hired me on, then they got slow." And
Mhm.
I did not know what to tell him, whether he should take those 4 jobs off or not, because some people,
Yeah.
you have to admit, some recruiters would look at that and say like, "Whoa, no, he's a job hopper."
I have hiring managers that look at it and they'll tell me I'm not willing to entertain them. If I like their
Yeah,
resume and I think their experience is relevant, I'll get them on the phone and find out why. And then I reach out. I don't just send a submittal. I'm calling the hiring manager saying, "Hey, I'm going to send this to you, but first, let's
right,
talk about
that's
this because
yes,
there's a valid reason." And I tell my
yeah,
hiring managers on intake, I'm like, anything from 2020 to now,
right.
if that doesn't match their prior tenure, you can't judge them by it. It's
I like how
impossible.
you
You
said that.
need them
I like how you said that. You're just like me, because I feel I have to sell it. I'd be like,
for a
"Damn, why
job.
can't I wish I could move that up, move these 2 down,
Right.
and go like that." And then I told him, "Listen, you're a Marine of 8 years." I said, "And you got that thing all
All
the
the way
way
at the
down at
bottom.
the bottom." And I
Mhm.
said, "There is nothing up top." And I said, "It's an average of 7 seconds," they say. And I do look at resumes more than that, I think. But some of them you do just flick through because you're just like, well, no, no.
There are some
But
of them that I know what keyword I'm looking for, and if it's not
right,
in there, I know that there's not gonna work, and there are
right,
other ones that I know that we're willing to train or willing to pull in for, a hire for fit and train for success, if
right,
you will. And, those ones I spend a little more time because then I'm looking at just the overall how long you spent at places, what you seem to enjoy enough to list multiple times, what you feel strongest in, then I'm paying a little more attention. So I don't
right.
think the 7-second rule is 100% accurate, but and I hate to be the statistic, but I think when you're working a high rec load,
Right.
more often than not, that is what it is. You know what you're looking for. You know what your hiring managers are willing to accept, and it doesn't make you inhuman or incompassionate. It just means I'm not going to put you through a phone screen and
Right.
me through the time that it takes to get us there when I already know that hiring manager won't entertain me.
Yeah, because I feel you have to agree. I believe that there is. I know you don't really know the person in that short a time. You're only there with them, let's just say 30 minutes to an
Yeah.
hour. And then how can you feel confident? I mean, as a good recruiter, I think as time goes on, you get that just stomach. I get that stomach.
You learn.
I'm like, you know what? I can sell you, I believe, but this is what you're going to have to do. I've helped them. Listen, you're going to have to. I had a guy, I told him, you got to redo your resume, man.
Mhm.
I can't forward this to you. He's like, what? I said, listen, you're telling me everything I'm asking you, and you're telling me about it, but it's not on your resume. So how
Right.
are they going to see it? You got no bullet points. You got nothing but two little paragraphs, and you're in middle management. And I said, how can you sell that? I said, you have the skills, but I have that. Where is it?
Yeah.
So there again, before we get them through the hiring process, it's a hard sell sometimes. And then some of them, I believe that's a recruiter's job or how
Correct.
experienced you are.
Yep, that's our responsibility, and you're
Yeah.
right, you do get a stomach for it. I think in the beginning, I would send people over, and in my head, I was like, "Well, but they checked, a couple of these
Yeah.
boxes, like, why can't we bring them in and train?" But as you start to learn, you learn which things you can sell and which things are
Right.
immovable objects, and you learn how to have them rewrite, which
Yeah.
honestly, and I know that's not the topic of tonight, so we should do it soon, but talking
Yeah.
about like AI use, not as a recruiter, but for the candidate. I've had
Well,
candidates throw it in their resumes into Chat GPT and
I
said,
know.
throw a few bullet points in there
Yeah.
of what you want added, have it structure it, copy that down, and then go through and adjust it. But it gives
Yep.
people a solid foundation to start
I
working
told one
with.
today to do it.
Yeah,
Yep,
I
and I
think it's
said, "Just
brilliant.
go," and I'll forward you mine, after the show. I just had it redone from the lady that does it for me, and she's overseas in that fever app thing, and she's done a great job, and so it was only $60 versus 80, and she's so professional, and she's got, like, 4.9 reviews out of 4,000 reviews, so, I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
but what I liked about it is I asked her, she sent me the new one, and it was a total different format again. So I said, why? I asked her, so why do you change the formats like that? Now she's saying because things change, and she might know more than I do on that part. I know everybody talks about ATSs, it doesn't pick up, but
Is
I
it the
kind of
AI
like what she did.
algorithms?
Yeah, my job on the bottom of the resume, my main job's up there, but it has just my accomplishments, all my experience, then the list of the job I'm at now with the bullet points. But at the bottom, it has my 5 jobs from my 58-year career there, just
Correct.
listed and the dates. That's
Correct.
it. Because all those keywords, I believe that's what I'm thinking when I hear from when you said that. I guess I kind of agree in a way because you really just have to read my one paragraph and you're going to see everything about me. Then you can look down and say, well, Dave, wow, 11 years, 8 years, 10 years, a good work record. So I
Correct.
was like, all right, I'll go with it, because I always like being prepared. I always have my resume. Everybody does. But I was really shocked at that, how she
Yeah.
did it.
I mean, and I think it's an easier way to show your tenure.
Yeah.
Now, I will say building your resume that way may not behoove you if your tenure is not good. And
Right.
instead of having 5
Yeah.
jobs over the course of your career, you have 15 all
Yeah.
listed in little bullet points at the bottom may not do you as
Yeah.
well as
And I think that going into the subject of tonight, of retention is it all starts there. It
yes,
all starts in the beginning and the onboarding and the interview process. But when you said about not worried about laid off, I get it because when you watched LinkedIn there last year for that last 6 months, wow, there was some serious people in talent acquisition that was losing jobs last year. A lot. A lot of remote jobs going away. A lot of them
almost all
coming
of them,
back to
it
the
seems.
office. Yeah. But to be able to tell people, okay, like I think you have to be honest, there are layoffs. I'm trying to think how I would say it besides at the company that I'm at. I would just be honest. I mean, I wouldn't say, but we haven't had layoffs in 5 years.
Right.
I, I don't know how to, if somebody was asking me that question, all I could do is just tell them the truth. I mean, I don't know, I can't predict, but
That's
some,
exactly what it is. I can't
you,
forecast that.
you just never know,
That's an
and
economy-based decision and above my pay grade. Unfortunately, that's not something that I can foreshadow for you.
yeah, because I can't, I do get in, I say the older generation. I like this one thing I'll go over with the different things at different age brackets, what people look for in a job and the retention. But why do you feel another top issue of it was naturally we always talk about the remote work, and you're a big advocate for that. I know you've always loved the remote work, and
Yeah, I've been remote since 2020, and I love the
yeah,
flexibility to take care of my kids and take care of what I do. I'm always one of the top performers, but I'm more present to my children now than I ever was.
But why do you think companies are going away from that anymore? You see it.
Trust.
But I believe just the way you say, you're so, you're so professional. You're so professional that you just say it right because you mean it.
Because it's
Some
true.
people,
It's trust and control.
yeah. I mean, if you're not, I always say, okay, when I work remote on Fridays, I don't care for it. That's just me. I did it for
Yeah.
so long but I'm like, I get it. I will stay home. Isn't that weird to say? As a recruiter, I will stay home. And I do get work done, a lot done. It's a lot quieter. I work longer and harder when I work
Yep.
remote. I think because all of a sudden I'll be like, I just worked 4 hours and didn't even know it.
I was working at like 11:30 last night, sending interview requests out for my hiring managers because I could. My kids were in bed, dinner was done, everything was cleaned up, and so I did.
See,
Like there was nothing to stop it.
but do you give people, your colleagues, anybody that's work remote, do you give them advice on that, what they can do? Do people ask you that at all, or to try to keep it remote, or what you can do to show, I guess prove, I don't know, I
I don't
guess
think
like you
you
said, it comes
can.
down to word trust. You're right. It
Yeah,
just
I
comes
don't think
down
you
to
can
that.
prove
Trust.
anything. I think the reality
Yeah.
is I saw something on LinkedIn, actually it was this week, that
Right.
said we're hiring adults, not children. Like let
Okay.
them do their job, don't watch the clock. Like watch productivity, not the clock.
Okay.
And it's the
Oh,
kind of
I like that one. Watch productivity,
productivity, not the
not
clock.
the
And
clock.
but
Oh
that's what
God,
it
I'm gonna
was.
remember that one.
Yesterday I stepped away for a few hours. I was relevant to my children, and then I was back on until late. I
Late.
probably still worked more hours than I would have had I been on in my quote unquote designated hours if I were to show up to an office.
Right.
Accomplished more and was more focused because I didn't feel like I was being pulled in multiple directions.
Yeah, that makes
Um,
sense. I guess
so
it
no,
makes sense.
I don't think you can tell somebody what to do to manage. I think you can tell somebody how to handle it on their own a little bit more
Right.
efficiently. I think you and I have discussed this before. When I first started working remote, my biggest struggle
Yeah,
was
you
not,
were for it.
I didn't have well, I hated it when we first did
Right.
it. Absolutely hated it. But because I couldn't figure out how to separate my home life from my work life.
Right.
So I would have 30 minutes in between calls and be like, ooh, I should go clean the bathrooms. Or, ooh, I should go do laundry.
Right.
Um, let me take the dogs for a walk, even though I don't walk my dogs. It's Florida. I have a backyard. So I would do these things, but because I was here and I
Right.
could, and so I felt obligated to. And I
I
think
take 2
that's
breaks now. I take 2 breaks in the morning, only for like 10, 15 minutes. I'll go over to share or I'll walk outside.
yep.
And then, but if I don't do that now, then I've learned how to do it now. And I do take a lunch, like about 25, 30 minutes, and do a couple things around the house. And then I'm back, man. I'm here tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. I'm like,
Great.
I want them to say, you know what? I don't want that person to say, wow, because they know if you signed on. But it comes back again. I'm going to say it's the trust. I just
It's
keep
trust
going back to that word,
because
trust.
you just said they know if you logged on.
Yeah.
I have seen companies that will watch your keystrokes, that will
Right.
look at what time you logged on, exactly how many emails you sent, what time you sent your first email, how many times you logged off, how many times you went idle.
Right.
It's wild to me. It goes back to like you hired an adult.
But I would
Like
get mad if that was, I would be mad at that. You
if you
know,
were the employee or
upset
the
if I knew,
employer,
well, if I knew, maybe if they told you, hey, we are going to watch you. Okay.
right? But they don't, and they're not obligated.
But when you don't, I don't think, I've never had that in the back of my mind wherever I've worked. I've
I
never
didn't
had that
until I
fear of
experienced
somebody.
it.
I don't think I'd want to go there because I'd be like saying, "Oh my god." Because when I worked that remote for when I had the company there for the 2 years, I
Yeah.
worked so much, I burned myself out of working too much. I think that's what it was. It wasn't about working remote. I didn't know how to work remote.
So you were
And
working,
again,
overworking.
that's where it is. So that's where it comes down to, where when we talk about the retention, when it comes into even that interview, I thought about it. Again, how we say it starts there, but if you're not honest, and I don't care what night, any type of work, I believe it starts there on that onboarding, to where, listen, they're overtime. I think you sometimes, if you do work overtime, I think you should tell them or ask those questions. Because instead of starting the job and all of a sudden, hey, oh, we forgot to tell you, you work 2 weekends a month and you got to take a
Oh
day off
yeah.
during the week. You
I
know what I
think
mean?
transparency is key, but there you do
Yeah.
have some recruiters or even in companies, I will say, across the board, the onboarding process, right? I'll say
Right.
anywhere from recruiter to finishing background and actually
Right.
being physically onboarded. That whole process is your time for transparency. I don't
That's
understand the mentality of bringing in a body just to fill a seat, just to have a warm body there. If you know,
exactly.
it's so a lot of my roles, I fill a lot of sales roles. They
Right.
have exponential amount of travel. And so it's one of the things that I truly hammer in when I have these discussions, because if you haven't done, you call them, a road warrior when they
Right.
travel 70, 80% of the year, it's a
Yeah,
lot.
it
And
is.
so these people who have never done those things before, they're like, oh yeah, like I can handle it. And so if they've never done it, I'm like, can you? Can you live out of a suitcase?
Right.
Can you not kiss your kids goodnight for 3 weeks at a time?
Right.
Can you, like, I'm painting the picture, because if you can wrap your head around the worst pieces of it and still have a desire to move forward, great.
Right.
But it's not my job as a recruiter to make this look glamorous just so that I can make sure that my KPIs are met. And I think that there are
Okay. No, I
recruiters that
like
are
that.
that way.
I like that. I do. I like it.
So yeah,
I
if
think
you're
place
doing
with
it
it.
for metrics, then
Right.
that's going to be the very first step in hindering your retention, because you're
Right.
not hiring the right person. You're just trying to make sure your quotas are hit.
But my goal this year was, no matter how many years you do it, I always come up with like, wow, I'm going to do it this way now. The right way, the strong way. But I've slowed down, and I mean that in a way to where I realize sometimes I don't look at the, like you said, I'm not the type that looks, hey, you're supposed to get this amount of people, because I don't feel I'm judged on that. Again, it comes down to your results of how hard you work and what you can show. But if you can get that person and be honest with them, and tell them what, like you said, listen, you're going to work the weekends. You're going to have overtime here and there. You can see that gulp when they gulp.
Uh-huh. Yeah, if it doesn't work for them,
I'm
and you're
like,
giving them the opportunity to be honest about it.
yeah. And you gotta like, listen, all the companies down around this area here, there is a lot of these new shifts. I don't know what people are thinking. I just wish they'd go back to family friendly shifts, kind of, at least adjust to them a little bit,
What do you
because
mean?
like hours, like for example, instead of like, it used to be like on swing shifts, like 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7. Now you have a lot of shifts that you might start at 12 midnight. You might start at 2 in the morning. You might
Right.
start at 4 in the morning. You know what I mean? It's really throws it's hard into a family life. And I think that's where, listen, we're not supposed to ask, hey, you have a family, you have a family, but you want to be able to kind of bring that out to say, this is the shifts. But at the same time, I understand it, why they need it. But to be honest with them,
But
to
is
try,
it a
like
long
single
term?
moms, yeah, like you can't ask a mother, oh, do you have children? You don't want to go there
No,
because you
you
can't.
ask, here's the work model that's
Yeah,
gonna be expected of the person who comes in here. Is this conducive to your lifestyle? And then you let them answer it.
right. And that,
Like,
well, okay.
it's little things, because I do that a lot, because I wanna know if they can handle that level of travel, and I'm not gonna ask
Right.
if they have a wife at home, if they have
No, you
kids.
can. That's
I
what I
have to
mean.
let
You
them
can't.
bring it up, but that's usually my go-to statement, is just, "Hey,
Right.
look, this is the requirement of this role. Have you experienced this kind of setup before? And is this a work model that you're comfortable with and is conducive to your current lifestyle?"
Right.
And
Now, do
then
you have
let
to
them
travel
kind
at
of
all?
hone it.
You
I
don't have to
don't.
travel. No, no, you don't have to travel
No.
at all. No.
I wouldn't mind it a little bit. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to be and I've been told numerous times, like, "Kylie, you'd be great in sales. You should
Yeah, no,
go,"
you would. You would.
but
Do
I
you have
don't
to
wanna
go into
travel.
office at all, or do you have meetings, or being remote, do you have to go in, or you just don't
Nope.
have the office? No?
This office, my corporate office, is in, Pennsylvania. So
Okay.
I was hired as a fully remote. I've been with this company for a little over a year and a half now, I guess. I
Right.
think June will be 2 years, so actually right at a year and a half.
Right. Good. Good.
Um, and I was hired as a remote employee, and that was just kind of the model.
The
You know,
model on that. But I usually tell people, I try to let the truth and try to be as honest as I can, because again, some of the job descriptions, and I read them all the time on Indeed from all different places of jobs, like, and I'm like, wow, I wish they would shorten it somehow and really put in there what they do.
Mhm.
Because sometimes a lot of the job descriptions on Indeed, I'm like, I know that place, and I'm like, they don't do this.
Or
The
it's just
manager doesn't.
incredibly generic. It's got 5 bullet points. It doesn't really tell you anything at
Yeah.
all. You're just
Again, I think it all starts if you get that onboarding right. You get that right, you're gonna have an easier time retaining some of the employees, and in all different fields. I get it, but I believe if you get it right, you're honest, you take them through the whole process, you get through there, you might get an employee that's going to stay for a while. Because it's like, why did they leave? Why? That is a cost a lot of money just to
Yeah.
constantly turnover and turnover and turnover. And that's where it comes down to, it's like, what do employees want? On here, one of the things, it was kind of funny. It broke it down to the age brackets, kind of, and it was weird. It's because it was like, what does Gen Z wants? 18 to 24. It was talking about opportunities, learning, development, work-life balance, purpose-driven work, mentorship programs. I wasn't sure of the mentorship when they said that. I was a little bit there, but it says also social connections and team activities.
Okay.
Boy, I get into my area. Geez, above 55. Okay. Desire for retirement or reduced hours, feeling disconnected from company goals, poor health support and benefits, and lack of respect for contributions. And I'm thinking,
And that's
what
the
the heck?
reason that they leave, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and the reason that they leave, and then like 35 to 44, job
That's what I was
stability,
gonna.
security, and that kind of makes sense.
So
35 to
that was my
44.
immediate. I'm 35, and when you
Yeah,
asked, I was like, I feel like it's stability. But
that's
we're
it.
in
It
the
says
midst
right
of
there.
raising our children right now. That's a need. I tell people
Yeah,
all the time, like, I see what's going on in the market, and I'm so grateful all the time. I love my job, but I'm so
right.
grateful to have a job because
Same here.
I have a roof over my children's head and food on the
Yes,
table, and I know
yes.
how many people are not in a position to say that comfortably right now.
Correct, and
Stability is
that's where I
big
feel
at
so
night.
bad. You can see it in the interviews. You feel bad. You can just hear it. When somebody's having a rough time, and I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
I had one gentleman. I had to tell him, this is a while back, and he had a great resume, but it wasn't broken down. But I asked him, and he said, "Well, Dave," he says, "to be honest with you, I've been going through recovery." So I said, "Okay." I said, "I get it." He was being so honest, and what a gentleman, so honest. But then at the end, I said, "Listen," I said, I always like to give some advice on some parts. I said, "Some things I just don't believe you have to say. You really, with HEPA, I always
Some things
explain
are
to
better left
people,
unsaid.
yeah, when they talk about health conditions, I've always told, I just like, listen, and they love it when you just listen, I'm just going to give you a little bit of advice before
Mhm.
you leave. Try
Yep.
I explained what the HEPA rule is, and I said, you kind of don't want to do it. Listen, I'm not as biased as anybody else. I'll really listen, and you can break it. I think that's a sign of a good recruiter too, because you're not just, oh no, he's got high blood pressure. He just said, nope, nope.
I've never done that. I've never, but I do the same thing you
No,
did. I'm like, you don't need to disclose that. I appreciate
no,
your honesty, but
yeah,
maybe with the hiring manager, keep it a little bit more focused on. It's just
yeah,
unfortunate
not
when it's like
recovery.
that was the reason they left their last role. So then it's,
Yeah.
how do you get around it?
That's what I
Um,
mean, and I felt bad, but he appreciated. I said, just don't bring that up. That's a great, your background, what you're doing, you're getting your life straightened out. But try to, I know the positivity. That's the way he said he has meetings. He said he can't find a job because Tuesdays he has to go to the meetings. And I was like, well, that's just kind of stuff like that. That's not going to get you the job.
no,
When you're going to say
no,
that
it will not.
Tuesdays,
And I hate to
and
say that, but it's true.
it's the
And
truth.
I'm also the like advocate of, and I know many people who have
Right.
struggled with these kinds of problems personally. I'm also the advocate that's like AA or is it whatever
Yeah.
I don't know the
Well,
other
AA is for the
NA is the other one.
NA. Yep.
Um, but they have meetings like 6 days a week. So while I understand you really like the Tuesday meeting, if you would like this job, maybe let's talk about meeting in the middle somewhere.
Right. But
So I
like
think
when
that's a part of the job too as a recruiter, right? Is saying
yeah,
like saying the hard things, whether that's encouraging them in their next round or
yep,
finding out that they weren't selected and having to make that phone call and say, "Hey, here's
that's
why you weren't. Here's what you can do to improve moving into your next round."
yep.
Uh,
I always wish I could get more information out of them. Why? Because I still think if you can go back sometimes and say, well, I kind of disagree with you. I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. But there again, you can't always, you can only do so much if they're the hiring manager, and it's like, okay, they want to know why. And I'd like to give them a reason why, because some of them really have done tremendous. And again, I hate that conversation, but I have it. I have to. I've
oh,
always
I
said to
do too.
myself, I want to know. If
I
if I'm honest, and I'll say I don't know. I don't know. They didn't give me a reason. Dave, I'm like,
So
I'm
will
sorry.
I, but I will push from my hiring managers for an
Right.
explanation of why. Even if it's simply that the other candidate, like if it
Yeah.
was splitting hairs, the other candidate happened to just have a baby leg up and there really was not anything, and we're at that point, I'm looking for somewhere else in the company to
Right.
put you, right? Like if that was the
Yeah.
problem, But if there is a reason, like, let's encourage people. Let's give them growth opportunities, because maybe they'll take what you say to them and spend the next year doing YouTube classes or taking on more stuff at their current employer to bridge that gap.
To bridge
Give
it.
them room to grow. I don't like saying that I don't know. I'm not a very big advocate of that
I
conversation.
know, and I've made up some things before. I have to, because I just sometimes you have to just figure it out on your own, and that's just part again of being in recruitment. Some of the ones in the beginning, I call it, I've evolved so much.
Yeah.
Evolved. But another thing that you said it about career advancement opportunities.
Mhm.
If I believe it, they always say it was like 5 years in, where you should decide, are you going to stay? You should be moving on. It was like 3 to 5 years you should move. One of the things I was reading, I was like, wait a minute, why would you want to move? I believe again in that beginning, but if you don't have that culture to where it's showing some kind of advancement, some people don't want to move, and that's
Correct.
okay. I always say, listen, if they're fine where they're at, they're happy. They love it in the office, certain jobs, they don't want anything more. But the lack of career advancement, when it gets to that, I always say, I think you should know that. You should see that once you start, once you're involved in that company, to see how far people go. If there's been somebody in a position for 15 to 20 years and they haven't moved out of that, and that's the role you want,
You're
that's not
probably not
happening.
getting it.
No.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say 3 to 5 years, because
Yeah,
I
it's
feel
three to
like
five.
from looking at resumes, it feels more like 2.
Right.
Um, and obviously that's statistic, but maybe it's just the roles that I'm personally have my hands in at this point. But I would say 2 years is kind of the expectation, whether that's because they've grown
To
to wanting just another company, or their current company is not providing um, the growth opportunity. But I feel like 2 years is kind of, they feel like they've gotten their footing. If they don't see the career progression, they're ready to take what they've learned and apply it somewhere where
somewhere
somebody's
else.
willing to let them.
Yeah, because those smaller companies, let's face it, I mean, it's harder on a smaller company.
Yeah,
I mean, face it, if you only have 25 employees, what do you want? I mean, you don't
correct. But you
this
knew
is
that going in. I think those
that's what I mean.
opportunities.
That's exactly what I meant
Yeah.
by that,
But when
you
you're
know?
getting into a large company and you've been there for 2 years,
Yep,
likelihood is you've had discussions with your leadership or management, whatever
right.
that may look like, about what your future goals are, and talked about whether or not that's a realistic opportunity.
Well, that
And
should be in your reviews, though, and listen, I am for reviews. I wish it wasn't just once a year. I don't think some of the companies, I just wish it would be more than just once a year. I know a lot of the companies in the past, you got the reviews at the end of the year or the beginning. That's just me. I just feel it should be more as a leader throughout, because a lot of the times people say they leave, again, my boss, I don't like the management. I didn't like the management or my bosses. That seems to be like one of the biggest things, that the first thing that
it is.
anybody ever says, well, my bosses or the management. You know, that's the kind of things right there is you you got to build that culture with a team of leadership and management to try to avoid that. But you should see it. You're going to see it. When you first start, if you have that micromanager and everything like that, I don't know what to tell somebody to do in that beginning phase if you have to go through that as a
Yeah.
reason why you're leaving.
But go for the opposite side of that. What happens
Right.
if you're told? What if you do have 3 times a year, twice a year
Right.
reviews, and you're told that, nope, we're setting you up. Like, we think you're going to be a great team lead. As soon as that position opens, we're going to start training you
Right.
for it. We're going to set you up for success. And then they don't. And then the next one comes around and they don't.
I
So I
don't.
think that there's a lot to be said for leadership, not just from the employee or the subordinate perspective in terms of retaining your people. I see leadership on a regular basis
Right.
that makes promises they can't keep.
It
Hires.
comes back. It bites you. It bites you in the ass. It comes
How
back to
can
you.
it not? I'm living it
Yeah.
every day. Like, if I'm showing up and that is the environment you've created for me, it doesn't matter what you sold me on your pitch.
Right.
Like, have you ever, and maybe not you personally, but I'm sure you've heard people talk about it. I couldn't wait to start this job. Everything we talked about in my 4
Right.
interviews was exactly aligned with it. I loved the company morals. The career progression
Right.
was fantastic, annual raises. And then 3 years in, they're like, I've been asking for promotion. I've applied 4 times. I haven't gotten
Right.
a raise once. So there is a setup We want to go with the old, bait and switch, if you
Right.
will. And I think that some accountability has to be held. And I think probably the highest amount of accountability to the leadership, whether it's not seeing potential
Right.
or having insecure leadership that doesn't want the potential on their team because they're not secure enough not to lose their own jobs to you. So they're
Wow,
not
that's
setting.
deep. That's really going deep. No, but that's the truth. That's the
But I've
truth.
seen it.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's the truth, and that's the thing there. I just think that you said you created it, so sometimes the leadership will be like, "Oh no, so he's going to bring that up. Oh no,
Mhm.
he's going to bring that up." And I've been there, and I'm going to admit it. It's a part of growth.
Yeah,
Years ago, I've been in that position to where I know this person wants to move, but why didn't I just tell them, "Listen, it's not going to happen for a while."
correct.
It's just not there. So I don't want to say to somebody, so if you don't like that, you need to leave. No. But at
That's
the
up
same
to
point,
them. But
you just need to tell them again, being honest about it, because you're going to get called out
and you
every
should.
time. Yeah.
And yeah, if you're telling me that opportunity is there, or you're waiting until a team call to deliver information that affects me personally,
Right.
that you've known about for weeks, why wasn't I a part of those conversations? Oh, because your title is higher than mine?
Right.
I
No.
don't like, we've talked about this before. I think
Yeah.
when I first met, when I did my interview with you,
Right.
um, I did, which feels like forever ago.
My God, that was a long time.
It was almost 2 years ago now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I think my big thing, I've said it 100 times, is a round table mentality. I think
Right.
that the
I like the round
CEO,
table. How you said that. Yeah, you did say that.
I've said it my whole life. My dad was that way.
Right.
And I think it's the CEO and the janitor both have valuable opinions. They may have different opinions and they may be
Right.
valuable in different ways, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't listen. And
Right.
I struggle with a leadership team that thinks that because my pay grade is below theirs, that I do not deserve to function with the same, or at least somewhat the same level of information.
Right. No, I agree.
Obviously, some stuff is not for me, but I think that too much is withheld from the team until it's all buttoned up. And then
Right.
our opinions aren't valid,
Right.
right?
It
Like
doesn't
I'm
matter.
the person who has to live it. Why am I not sitting at that table having that discussion? Yes, you trump everything here because you're the one having it at a
I like
higher
that.
level. But
Right.
what about what I may have to say that could make this, instead of 6 months from now, us finally figuring it out, to
Right.
not get down to 2 months because I actually am the one with boots on the ground dealing with it every day.
I like that. I like the
Um,
way you said that. Yeah, it makes total that makes you like what I said, you learn so much when you do even doing these shows, when you just talk to people, the way you say it, it breaks it down,
yeah,
for that person. Like you don't have that say at the table. I'm the one who does it. It's gonna affect me.
yeah.
So
And
why
I
not
know the
find out directly? You
Like, I've
know,
lived the pain points. I know those better than anybody. Like, you might understand how to facilitate, but I know how to actually implement and what that looks like and where it's positive and negative and how that
right,
impacts me, the candidate, the client, the retention. I know how
right,
it impacts the organic flow versus my need to spend 10 hours a week direct sourcing. Like, I'm the
right,
one who's dealing with this. So instead of making decisions that are then going to have to be changed over the course of the next 6 months, let's just have this as a collective and fix it the first time around.
and that way, boy, that would solve a lot more problems. I believe that if that's the part.
Yeah, but
Um,
you don't people don't want to do it. They don't want to give away the knowledge. They think that you haven't earned that seat yet. You
right.
haven't I haven't worked long enough. I haven't earned a VP role or a director role. So why would I talk to you about it? And I
Hey,
think that for retention, though, I think that affects a lot. Lack of value, lack of being heard, feeling under appreciated and
well, that
disrespected.
comes down to retention. That's only you just listed almost every single thing right there in that little paragraph there about retention. Everything you're saying, right there, it comes down to it. Like you said, recognition and appreciation. As
Oh,
simple as that is, as simple, I just think like when you say KPIs, but if you tracked everything, and I wish somebody would break it down. Some companies do, but the amount of people coming and going, the reasoning. But listen, I believe in exit interviews. I know I'll get slack on that one too, but people say they don't care about it. They don't care. I believe in exit interviews, and I hope that a good team would read them.
I
Especially
would
in
hope
a
so.
good. I know, but I just wish they would, because it would kind of help maybe open it up, or not open their eyes because they probably know about it already.
That's the point, right? They don't care about the exit interviews because they already know the answer and they just don't want to do anything about it. It takes
You
more
come
work
right
than they're
back and
willing to
you see, I
invest.
go both ways. I'm like, all right, there you go. But then there's the point. That's what I'm
Right.
talking about.
See, I
They know
think for
the
the
answer.
recruiter, that would be wonderful to hear. But at
Right.
some point, it goes back to the statement we made before, right? The hiring manager is the one making the decision. I can try all I
Right.
want to advocate for this person. The bottom line is it is that hiring manager's team. And
Right.
I don't get a say so. So if I'm the one who cares about the exit interviews, they already know the information. I want to use it to better something. They already know it and don't care. Then truly, where does the productivity from it come?
Where does it go?
I understand the value in it. I just don't
Right.
think that it's being applied properly for the value to go long term.
All right. You got me on that. That is a good way. That's a good way to say too. But then here we talked about, poor management, leadership, inadequate compensation and benefits. Everybody wants better. Listen, I mean, benefits are so expensive for anything. Let's face it. It's a perk. I think benefits sometimes is more of a perk because if some people will go with companies that have great benefits. Let's face it, with a family,
Yeah, it's
they can
valuable.
make or break you, boy. If you don't have good benefits, you get that question a lot. And there again, I think that has to be part of the interviewer. And if you're interviewing for a job, those are the kind of most important things that you need to ask. And a lot of people don't.
Oh,
If
I
you
coach
just
my candidates every time when they start asking. I also think that holding questions for the hiring manager is incredibly important.
going to
Right?
that next level. All right.
Yeah. So sometimes they'll ask me questions and I'll give them a very like scratch surface answer just so they don't feel dismissed.
Right.
And I tell them, take that to your interview because
But
likely
if
that
they
will
don't,
hit
that's what I'm
conversation.
saying. If you don't bring it up, it's kind of both responsibilities because you don't want to hide it. If you have crappy benefits, if it's just horrible, they're expensive, they don't pay anything, do you, no, I wouldn't say that on an interview. I wouldn't come right out and say, well, when they ask me that question, I mean, listen, well, I pay 25, I go to a doctor, I pay 50 for a specialist, I get my
Right.
prescriptions, and I have a family uh, pill to pay, a deductible
Right.
to reach. I don't go into how much I charge because I just say it's expensive and it's always expensive. But there again, I can see either you could have examples. I don't think you'd want to do that in an interview, though. I'm not sure.
No, I usually leave
No,
that to the hiring manager to get
makes
into
sense.
the
Yeah.
nitty-gritty, but also I'm fortunate the company that I'm recruiting for has fantastic benefits, so it's not a
Nice.
difficult conversation to have,
That's even
and
better.
when we get them past I don't usually try to send everything out at once because honestly, it just becomes busy work for me that's unnecessary until we've gotten them a little further in the process,
For that.
but once we start pushing people to panel, I'll start sending them like the one pager of the general. I won't give them every detail because they're not an employee yet,
Right.
but that one pager of the summary for benefits, I'll preemptively send it if they're going into the panel because I know that those things are valuable to people. Hey, I saw that you're
Yeah.
being scheduled for a panel. Wanted to go ahead and put this so that if you had any questions, you could bring those to the table when you get there.
Yeah, because I think you could ask that hiring manager towards the end to where they're going to make an offer. Listen, that benefits does come down to part of the. It does because you would be sitting there. Wait a minute here. That you're doing that math in your head in a way like, wait a minute
Right.
here. The salary's outstanding, but yet I'm going to pay this. I got 2, 3 children. Especially with people with families. Wow, that can get expensive. You're
Yep.
talking over some dollars a month sometimes, probably. Um, Back in the day, it was wow, that was really sweet, man. They paid for everything. We didn't
Oh
even.
yeah.
Oh my god, when I got out of the military, I don't even. We had, HMO just started in the 90s and 80s, and you never even questioned what benefits were. You had them; they were so freaking good. $5 to go to a doctor, $10. That was it. You know?
I read something recently that was talking about just how much it's changed and that was
Yeah,
something that was kind of like an American right.
yeah,
And they were talking about Social Security and pension and just the whole change. And um, I think to your point on benefits, though, I
right.
don't know that I would look at that as a retention problem. I would
Not
look
for
at
the benefits,
that as an offer problem
right?
and I would look at it as a retention problem if you're not giving raises
Right.
annually and you're charging that much money, but not counteracting inflation. I could see
Right,
that
yeah, because a
being
lot of companies
pulled
will
up
say they're gonna go up or stay the same.
and then
They'll
they
no.
don't. Yeah,
Yeah,
then
and
the
then they
cost of
won't.
insurance goes up and you don't get a raise for 3 years in a row. Then I could see it maybe being a part of the decision, but I don't know that it would be exclusively. If you're giving annual raises at a healthy percentage to combat inflation, then
Right.
that benefit that they signed on with, I don't
Yep.
foresee being a reason to exit.
No, that makes
Uh,
total sense.
but I think the number one, and I'll stand firm on it, the number one reason for exit, for lack of retention, is company. It's management. It's company
Management.
culture. It's the
Yeah.
toxicness, right? Like
Yeah,
I spend more time at work or working than I do with my friends and my family, with my
you
loved
do.
ones,
Yep, you
and
do.
by a healthy amount too. Actually, I work way too much,
Yeah, you
and
do. You put a lot of hours in and you're right. With workers, you spend a lot more time.
yeah,
You get
and I
2
want
hours a night.
to feel good when I show up. Like, I don't wanna be miserable. I don't want my phone to ring and be like, "Oh god, who is it?"
Yep, the drama.
I've done it. I've been
Yeah,
there, and where it's, a manager will call and my stomach drops because I'm like, "Oh god." It's
I
never
love that.
good, right?
Oh my god, that's so funny. That's so true, though. It
It's
is.
the
It
worst.
comes down to that. Yeah, and employees ever since now that we're talking about this again, your phone listens because all
Yes,
things
it
will come
does.
up. So, since I've been talking about, planning for the show with toxic and employees interviews, right? That's all that comes up on my Facebook feed now. So, I send those little reels to my message to me so I can go back and look at them.
Yep.
And the one guy was so funny about retention that he was like, damn it, he says, I've been at this place for 10 years and I'll look over there at Bob and Bob calls off 15 times a year and then he has all these problems and he
Right.
doesn't come in, he comes in late. I'm here every single day. And I just look at this guy and say, Bob, how the hell do you stay here when
Right.
I don't miss a thing? And that's the truth. That is so true. When I saw that, I was like, oh my God.
Yep.
That's so why people leave, and that's part of the reason too. It says the toxic work environment. Naturally, if somebody else is not even doing anything compared to you, why is it fair? And there it comes down again. I know we talk about the leadership, and where does it draw the line at? Where do you say you? It comes down. I guess you're making that decision yourself. It comes down to you wouldn't put up with it. I mean,
No.
I don't. I
And
wouldn't
that's what
either.
people start looking, but it's you were just talking it's like my favorite. I've said it so many times, talking about like, whoever doesn't show up.
Yep.
It always amazes me when the mentality is the person at the desk next to me is doing the
Right.
bare minimum to make sure that they don't lose their job.
Right.
I am overperforming. They're rewarded with not being given any additional work so they can continue to skate. And
Right.
I am rewarded with the effort that I put in by being like, well, we'll just give it to you because you can handle it. And
Yep.
there's no promotion, there's no extra day of PTO, there's nothing there. It's just like
Yep.
I'm not
Kylie
talking
thing.
about me, but like, yeah, Kylie can handle it. It's fine. Let's just
Kylie.
give it to her. Like,
Yeah, it's just another thing, and no,
Dave
I've been
might not
there.
be here for 2 days this month, so we'll give it to Kylie because she's consistent. I'm like, okay, well, like, am I getting a promotion with all of this extra stuff you're getting? No,
Oh,
okay.
it's hilarious. It's when you listen to all that because it's the truth. I mean, it made I watched that thing and I watched it over and over again. I'm like, oh my God, I just started laughing over the thing. I'm like, that is so true. And it comes down to again all these that we've talked about. I can't believe we're over at 50 minutes already, almost done here. And
Every time it happens every
I'm the
time.
same way. All right, 50 minutes, and I did all this
You always do.
and all
You get through
this
like 2
over
pages
here.
of the 12 pages of
Yeah, I
15
do,
pages
and
of research.
but no, I got smarter now. So I take all this, I put it together, and I put it in a folder.
So you
Because
can
I
use it
know
for the next
next time I
time that
don't.
we end up on this subject?
Yeah, I don't have to spend. But no, it again. I mean, I'm going to put my 2 cents into it at the end. As I really believe again, when you're going for that job, read the job description, know your resume, go in there, ask the right questions. If you have write it down. Big thing is I've learned anymore is I know it's simple. Just write it down.
I'm a note
You
taker
know.
for everything.
Well, I'll
List
tell you
and
what,
note.
if I didn't have this thing, I don't have it here with me, it's over there. So I bought this thing on Facebook and it took about 2 months to get. So it's a little thing, a little ring, and it's a thing attaches right to your phone.
Okay.
So whenever you're talking or whenever you're in a meeting, you just tap it. Even while your phone, it prints it out in a PDF,
Oh, I've
every
seen
single word by word,
those.
and it'll cost $99. You get 10 hours a month free. So as soon as we're done, everything that we've talked right here, I could just go print, and it'll
And it'll
print out,
transcribe and print for you.
transcribe everything, everything.
That's awesome.
And I like that because I use it as a tool because I need it because like with memories and anything like that, you got so much going on that you're like, oh yeah, man, I remember that, I remember that. But it's just the tools that you need to ask. You need to ask questions, find out vacation times, find out what kind of hours you'll be working,
Mhm.
and write it down, ask the questions, and I think that's somewhat will help because I think as adults, like you, I like the part we said about children. It's
Yeah.
we're
We're
not
hiring
children,
adults, not children. We're
and that's
hiring people for productivity and not clock watching.
it
And I
is
but I think the biggest thing for candidates too is like we're talking about retention from what an employer needs to do
right,
in order to retain
right.
their employees. But I also think to some extent the candidate has to be responsible too. If you didn't ask the
Thank
right
you. There you
questions,
go. There you go.
if
You're
you
an
didn't
adult.
ask the right questions in the beginning, because I tell my candidates every time, and anytime I've interviewed, I've taken the same, at least later in my life. Maybe when I was younger, I didn't, but
Right,
is I'm interviewing too. Like I'm interviewing them. What do you
right.
have? What is your plan for the person coming into this role over the next 2 to 5 years?
Over that.
Uh,
Look at this. We got our first. I was just gonna say to you for the first time back, we got one comment. Steve, how's it going, Steve? Oh, because I was worried. I'm thinking, wait a minute here. Tuesday we had like 7, 8 people, and then today finally I was thinking it shows everything is running, and I'm like, all right, at least we got one. How's it going, Steve? He's in Utah, so he's across there. But as you were saying, go ahead, because I want you to give your perspective at the end of it. I like how you said about the
Yeah,
opposite.
I think that's like the part of it, right? Is as we can talk all day long about what the employer is
Right,
responsible for, and I think that's the most popular version of this conversation.
right,
But I think taking all responsibility away from the employee
right.
would
Yep.
would be remiss, right? So I think saying you need to be interviewing your interviewer at the same
Right,
time. You need to know what you expect from this company and then
right,
ask about their deliverables because if they can't meet your expectations, it doesn't matter if you can meet theirs. That's not the
right.
right place for you.
Yep.
And then why would you want to take something and then spend 3 months learning their way so that you can find that you're miserable because of
Yep.
something that you should have been addressing from the get-go? If you know that one of my favorite questions to ask when I interview, when I'm the person interviewing, is
Right.
what does remote work mean to your company? Do you
That's it.
expect me to be at home in my home office? Or if I get on a video call with you 3 months from now and I happen to be sitting on a balcony in Hawaii, but I am
I've
doing
seen
my
that
job,
on I've seen that.
is that okay? Because one of the things that I love about being remote is I'm a workaholic. So I'm going to work most of the time, even if I'm traveling. I was in
Right.
New York.
Yep.
I went and spent 10 days in New York with my partner, and he and we stayed up there, and we well, thank you. I'm not
Yeah, we
sure
have
who
a
that is,
LinkedIn
but
user.
thank you.
I'm not sure of the name. Whoever you are, you can say your name if you like, but
Much
some reason it
appreciated.
comes up underneath not their name. So
That's okay. Um, but I was in New York, and I had a company prior that I did the same thing. I went to New York. That's why when I was like, this is a question that I ask. This matters
right,
to me because they were genuinely upset when they found out that I was up there, and they were like, "So you're on vacation?" And I was like, "No, I'm just working from somewhere else." Well, but that's not where like we hired you. I'm like, this was remote work, right? Like, I didn't miss in the job description that it said work from home. It was
right,
remote because those are two different things. But it was great because I worked all day just like I would anywhere else. And then at night we went and saw a Broadway play 3 different times and went and had
uh,
wonderful dinners. And so it was kind of a vacation, but also I didn't have to take PTO because I really didn't want to.
right,
I didn't need it. I think I took a day and a half the whole time I was there off. And it worked out beautifully. My job was still very well done, and I got
right.
to go and enjoy somewhere else for a little bit. So
God,
for me, I know when I'm in an interview, I have to ask them, what does remote work mean to you? Do you expect me
right,
to be in my home office, or is your mentality that, home is where or work is where the Wi-Fi is? Because I
right.
need that in my life. So
I
I
had
think
it
just
so
going
funny,
in,
Kylie, when one of our shows when we first were doing it, you were able to play it, redo the show being live.
Yeah, I remember
Well,
that. He was
I
like
put
in a
it on
play.
during the day. I didn't do that no more. You should see how
Oh
people,
god.
"Hey, aren't you at work?" "Yes."
Oh.
It's recorded as live, and I'd be like, "Oh my god, I did it just
Oh,
so people could see my show," but then I
people
stopped because I
people
didn't
see
want
what they
people
wanna see.
assuming that
Uh-huh.
I was doing a show in the middle of my
Instead of
work.
at
I
work.
would never do
Right.
that. I don't go on LinkedIn at all during my work time,
Oh, see,
and I
I
was
do,
just,
but I use it for sourcing, so I
oh,
have to.
well, I mean, I'll do it for that, but I don't go on there and do my personal stuff, and I'm like, "Oh my god," but I stopped doing it, but like you said, they didn't know where I was, so I was like, "Damn."
Too funny.
So no, it's great to have you back. And I tell you
Thanks.
again, this this show here, you can just branch it out to so many different things,
Yeah.
to talk about different things. But so much thank you for coming on again, and we'll be here next week, and I'm sure we'll come up with some great ideas. But I am going, at least I know two people. Well, they must have been watching. So usually the comments coming up here, I love this new platform, and get used to this. But I want to talk to you after this. So here we go again. I got to try to put this on here. I think that's it right there. That's it.
Growing pains.
I'll be right back after this with you.